What's going on, podcasters and YouTubers? This is Hav here, one of your hosts from the Real Fan Review, coming out of Long Island, New York. With me today, we got my brother Sanj.
Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be back with you.
We got my blood brother B.
What's up, everybody?
We got our man in the chair, who's also my brother Al.
How's it going, everybody?
Fake outs across the board.
Yeah, got everybody today, man. But listen, man, we want to thank you guys for coming on today. And I know some of you guys are reading the title for the podcast, and you're like, I thought this was a movie podcast. Yeah, no. We are a movie podcast, but we're fans of entertainment. So how could we not talk about Game of Thrones coming back with the House of Dragons? How funny was it with no intro? There was no intro yesterday. Just get right into it.
They just went right into it.
And so will we. But we're just going to tell you also, we're going to talk about She-Hulk as well. So again, we apologize to the movie fanatics. We had no time this week to go see Beast with Idris Elba, but we support. So tell you guys, we're going to watch it. When we do, we'll review it, but I just don't know when we're going to watch it. And I don't know what's coming out this week. So if anything, if we don't have things to talk about.
We are dropping the ball.
Yeah. But if we don't have something to talk about, at least we have She-Hulk and the House of Dragons to keep us going until Wakanda forever.
That movie's going to be ridiculous.
Oh, I can't wait, dude. But let's get right into it, man. I mean, listen, we are all fanatics of House of Dragons because of Game of Thrones, because of that incredible series. I know Al has watched some of it, season 1, I believe, of Game of Thrones, right, Al?
I think I'm in the middle of season 2.
Ooh, Al's making his way. But luckily for Al, this won't spoil anything for him because this really doesn't have anything to do with those stories of Game of Thrones. This is
it's like a
prequel,
prequel, right?
Not yet.
Wait, so Al, since you're only in season 2, do you know who John's father is?
John's father. I know it's not the guy who got beheaded in the beginning of the show, right?
Okay.
No, so we'll keep it that way, though.
Ned.
Oh man, Hav, when he gets to hold the door, oh my God.
I hated the second season because Ned wasn't in it.
Jesus, hold the door. Just remember that phrase, Al. Hold the door.
Is that where Hodor comes? Because they all say Hodor or Hodor or something.
When you see it, bro, when you see it, you're gonna lose it.
Hits you right in here, right in here. But let's get into Game of Thrones, House of Dragons. But first, let's talk about what it meant to have it back. Brandon, you kind of forced me back into Game of Thrones, telling me the stories of you and your fiance loving this show. And I said, whack. Then I proceeded to watch 8 seasons back to back for about 2 months. Oh, dude, I loved it.
Honestly, it seemed to me like you did it in 2 weeks.
It was really quick.
It was quick, but I did enjoy it, man. So, Brandon, man, tell me, how was your thoughts of going into seeing Game of Thrones, House of Dragons?
I was a little weary of it, because I love Game of Thrones. And just, coming back to it after the ending that we got, I wasn't sure what Game of Thrones series we were going to get. And now I did read like the book that this series is based off of, and it's different than you think. It's not necessarily like a book. It's more of like a historical timeline, a telling of like this family up until a certain point. So I was wondering how they were going to take it and make it a series,
Right.
But I would say, when the show started and I saw the dragon flying over King's Landing, I'm like, we're back. Game of Thrones is back.
Now, one of my favorite phone calls to make whenever I was confused with anything were those two guys right there, Sanj and B. So, Sanj, how about for you, man? How did you feel seeing Game of Thrones back on TV?
Well, when I saw that dragon, I mean, they didn't even show the dragon, right? They just show clouds. So right away, oh, they're doing this right off the bat. Like I felt like it really transported me to a place where I felt like I was flying on a dragon and imagining myself being a Targaryen. So it took me right back into the world. I like B. I was skeptical about it because you got really invested in the characters from Game of Thrones. Like
Mhm.
Jon and Daenerys, and I mean everybody else. I mean, it was very hard not to get invested in the characters, even the ones that were villains.
Mhm.
Because they told so much of everybody's story. Like you really didn't know who was gonna rise, who was going to fall from week to week, who was going to die week to
Right.
week. So it I was skeptical, but right when they did it like that and got you that way, it was just incredible to see the landscape again and be transported back to Westeros.
Right.
Yeah, and listen, I know for you two guys, it's been 3 years, right?
Yeah,
But for me, it's been a month. It's been
it's been a
it's been a
long win.
month, and
Yeah.
I feel like even with just a month waiting for this show to start, I was like getting like antsy. I was like, come on, I want to see what's next. And I got to tell you, man, as soon as it started and we see the clouds, and you're going to see a dragon somewhere roaring or whatever, and I got to tell you, it felt like we were back, right back in the Game of Thrones area. But I think because of that, there was expectations that I had as well for this episode, which I shouldn't have so much expectations. But listen, it's still early, so there's still time for things to happen, and there's some definite interest and intrigue in the show. So I'm excited for it and to see the rest of it in the way that it plays out. Al,
Yeah.
how about for you, man? I know you didn't get to finish the whole Game of Thrones series,
No,
but did you get a chance to watch this episode?
no, actually, because I was going to hold off, but it's making me want to ask you guys: does it look like they're gonna? Because I know that it's setting like what 200-300 years
A
before.
hundred. They said 172 years before
Yeah,
Daenerys
Yeah.
Targaryen.
before. Okay, so do you think they're gonna expose? Like, is there anything that they're gonna do story wise in this show that would ruin like surprises that they reveal throughout the normal game of the
I
regular?
doubt it. For me, I
If
mean,
you,
Sanj, yeah.
yeah,
Because
I
like
was gonna
sometimes
say,
there's like familial relationships that sometimes they may not show in a show until later seasons. Like, will this
you. I would
expose
I
that
would
because you're
say
getting the whole history?
I would say you should definitely watch it the way you would watch Star Wars, middle first. Don't
Okay.
don't go in chronological order. Go by how they released it, and you'll
Okay.
get the best experience.
yeah, and Al, to be honest with you, since the story is 172 years before Game of Thrones, I think the most thing that you're gonna get, or you're probably not going to get, is a little hints and little like winks to places and things that you see in the show, so that
Okay.
you might not really get when they show you something. You're like, why are they just showing a hallway? Because to us, it's like, oh, that's the hallway that this happened. You know what I mean? So I don't think you're gonna really miss much. Like, there's a scene where they go into the basement of one of the places in King's Landing.
Hmm.
If you watch Game of Thrones, you know what that place is and you see where it is and what it is, and you're like, oh, I know this place. There's things missing, but it's because that hasn't happened yet.
Oh,
So I
okay.
don't think it'll ruin it for you if you watch it,
Hmm.
because I think it's going to be hard for you to watch all of Game of Thrones and then start watching this.
Yeah.
So I mean, listen, it's up to you and the fam, but I would tell you give this a shot and watch it week to week, because it might be crazy, and you might miss some crazy
Yeah.
stuff, man. Because this episode kind of filled up a lot of things. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was thinking of watching it because I don't want to be like now, like 8 seasons after the show. Everybody's already watched all 8 seasons,
Hmm.
and I haven't watched any of it, and everybody's talking about the show. So I
Yeah, that's what I
figured
was going to tell
instead of
you.
waiting,
I th-
maybe
but I
do
think
both of
this
them at the same
show
time.
I
Mm.
think this show is gonna trade on everybody having a base of knowledge from watching the other show. So
Yeah.
you might be a little lost about something because they reference in Game of Thrones, they reference a lot of stuff from this time period, even though
Mhm.
it was so much before the time
Mm.
frame of Game of Thrones that we got before. So I still say like even right in episode one, it gives it's a there's a, it gives away a secret of Game of Thrones that they spend a lot of time setting up and give you a nice reveal as well.
Mm.
So you
Oh,
know,
I must have missed that shit.
Those are the end of the episode.
At the end of the
yeah.
It
episode,
was the whole end of the episode. Yeah.
God, I'm fucking brutal with this shit. Like, dude, right over my head, dude. I must have missed it because I was like, this is fantastic. There's nothing to do with Game of Thrones. Oh man,
Yeah, you really did miss that end of the show
Oh,
then,
it's
didn't you?
Jesus, the
I'm
fuck was I
like,
looking at?
if you think it had nothing to do with Game of Thrones, I'm like, hmm. Okay. Okay. It's
Man, so
nice.
Anyways.
It's nice. You buys it.
definitely buys it, dude. Talk to me, Sanj. You watching this episode, and how was it for you, man? Was it really like just right back to what it was? Is there anything about it that didn't meet your expectations, or were there just a lot of things that didn't meet your expectations for this?
I didn't go in with expectations. I was just happy to be
Okay,
back in Westeros. Like B, I
yeah,
did read the source material that they're using
right.
for it. So I thought it was but again, the source material gives you just like a historical recounting, like this happened on this date. It's like a timeline,
Yeah.
like B said.
Hmm.
It doesn't give you all this detail, all this dialogue, whereas the other Game of Thrones books did give you dialogue and descriptions of scenery, and like, it really immersed you in the world. So the source material that I know for this series doesn't immerse you in the world. So I wanted the
Hmm.
show now to immerse me again in, and really give me a feel for what does Westeros feel like, what's the tone, what's the temperature, and of the politics at the moment. So and I feel this show is doing that. And the only thing I will say that threw me off a little bit about it overall, I give it a 10 out of 10.
Right.
But the only thing I will say that threw me off a little bit is that I was looking for familiarity in the characters, and that was wrong to do, because again, this
Yes.
is 107, like, this is 2 centuries before Daenerys. So there's not going to be anybody alive at this time who can
Hmm.
overlap, even if it was like 50 years or something. Like, you would expect some overlap or
Right.
something like that, but
Definitely.
it's not. It's
Mhm.
not. So I was really really wanted to feel like that connection right away to some sort of familiar character,
Hmm.
and but that was my fault. That wasn't the show's fault.
Absolutely, man. I mean, that thing that happened to me as well, as far as like expectations of what I thought I was going to see during certain scenes. Like, there's a fight at the end. Again, I'm not going to spoil this for Al because I want him to enjoy it as well. There's a fight at the end, and I kept expecting something to happen, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna happen. He's gonna chop his head off or something, and it's just like, oh no, we're not there yet. Like,
Yeah, right.
here it's my mind from season 8 and season 7 where everyone went. Like,
Yeah,
at any
yeah,
second someone could die, and then I'm like, oh no, we're not there yet. And it's cool. It's its own story. And I got to tell you, the one thing that I did love, and it absolutely met my expectations, is the politics, which is Game of Thrones.
yes,
It's immediately that they show you the father who's going to pass on his legacy, trying to choose who he wants. He couldn't make a decision. Then we have a next scene where something else is happening, where it's like, okay, who's going to be the person that goes into the throne now? And there's so many politics about who they want, who they don't want, and what these people are doing and what they stand for. And it's just like, shit, we're back, dude. We're back in Game of Thrones, and we're all gonna play the game. This was just the first episode to kind of like introduce us to these characters. You kind of see who are gonna be the big characters. But I
hmm
think just like Game of Thrones, I think every week we're gonna meet some new characters and fall in love with some new characters. So I'm excited for it, man. How about you, Brandon?
I was overly anticipating this episode, I think. Cuz I enjoyed the politics about it. I enjoyed basically, the start of our characterizations with Renea and Damon. Um, I thought it was really good character building because I actually I'm a big fan of Matt Smith. You know,
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
so
I
I was
forgot to mention
happy.
that. Yeah,
I was happy to see the role that he's in and like where it's gonna take him. And then I forget her name. It's like Molly Alcock or something like that. She is really great. Like she plays a really great Rhaenyra, and I'm just excited to see where they go because
Hmm.
I'm so used to Game of Thrones. Like, I feel like my characters need to be there already and like just do
Mhm.
shit. But I forgot this is episode 1 of a new show, and I'm like, I gotta
Absolutely.
let it build, and I'm just waiting for
Let it
something to
build.
happen. But I thought
Yeah.
overall the episode was really good. It set up the political nature, how it's really not that different from what happens 172 years later. How it's actually kind of worse, you know? Um,
Yeah.
so it was interesting to see that fact and to see the story building of the historical timeline. You know, one of the major scenes was in that jousting match. Um, they talked about how when the Targaryens took the throne in King's Landing, how there was no more war, you know, but you see
Right, for
how
100
everybody,
years,
for 100 years, there's been no
no
war,
wars.
and you see how brutal everybody is, and you see that it's a society led by fear. They could go to war at any time, but they're afraid that these dragons are going to come and end shit. So
Yeah.
like
Mm.
Like them motherfuckers got dragons. You
they
can't
got
fight that shit, bro. You can't fight that.
that was the part that I thought was really cool when I started to see it in hindsight, you know?
Right.
And then the end of the episode for me, well, it was like when we got to see the building of what we know in the future, and I was like, oh shit, here we go. Like, where do we go from this point?
Mm.
Oh, I'm gonna have to call you motherfuckers after this. I don't know what the hell y'all talking about. I
Please,
cannot believe
please
this shit just
do.
went poof.
Just whatever they said in the think about it like this. What they said at the end of the season is exactly what happened in season 8.
I heard that and I'm like, why are they talking about that now? Like,
You're welcome. There it is. Let it settle. Let it sink
Please
in.
and please and thank you.
oh man. All right, man. And listen, the last thing I want to talk about before we get into She-Hulk is the characters that we saw here. I think Brandon nailed it on the head with Matt Smith, man. I mean, he was
Mhm.
incredible. But I think some of the standout to me actually was the hand of the king. I don't remember his name. I think it was Otto. He had
Otto Hightower.
Otto Hightower, dude. There's something that's a little bit like there's a manipulation going on. There's
He's a
there's it
weasel.
he comes across like Littlefinger a little bit, but except at first I thought he was a real stand-up guy. He was speaking up for the king the way he should and telling the king good advice. But then he does something later on where I'm like, that's a little ugly, bro.
Mad
Like, what are you doing?
sus. Mad
Yeah,
sus.
a little sus, definitely sus. But yeah, and then you just see what he's doing, and you're like, this motherfucker's playing the game too. Like, it's just kind of crazy, man. So I'm like, all right, let's see where this goes, man. So again, Matt Smith, Otto, Sanj, how about for you, man? Any standout characters for you?
Damon. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
hate
Matt
to
Smith,
have
man.
it be the, the guy who's like out there,
Yeah,
doing the most. But yeah,
intriguing.
uh intrigue. And then, but Renera, she's very subtle.
Mm,
Like you can see like the actress is doing a very good job of just seething.
mm-hmm,
You can see like she's living in a world where she can't speak up, but she understands everything that's going on, and she has she has her own agenda.
mm-hmm.
She's just looking for a way to make it happen. And I think by the end of the episode, she's seen that, you know, I've got my way to do this. I've
Yeah.
just got to be smart. I remember she's young though. That's the
Mm-hmm,
thing. So it's like a juxtaposition because Damon's older. He's not like old, but he's like
mm-hmm.
older. He's seasoned. He's an adult. He's like in his prime, and
All
she's
right.
young on the come up.
Yeah,
You know.
she's supposed to be 8 in the book.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, she's supposed to be like
Yeah,
8
she's
years
definitely not
old
8. She's
at this
definitely
point.
like
Yeah.
14, 15,
But
16.
well, the actress is 22.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they're definitely portraying her as like a teenager,
Yeah.
yeah.
which makes other things in the episode kind of creepy, but we won't spoil that for Al.
Yeah, yeah. Man.
Oh, forget it. From what I've seen of Game of Thrones, I can only imagine
Yeah.
there's just
what's
like there's
going on in this
you know
movie, in the
what? But
show.
when you learn about the Targaryens,
When you
there's
know, you
another layer.
know.
There's another layer to the creepiness because
Yeah.
I'm
When
not
you
going to
know,
spoil it
you
for you, but you
know.
just got to learn when you know about the Targaryens, you'll understand.
When
You
you
know
know,
how to
you
get
know.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. All right, listen, it's gonna be crazy. And again, I think Al, if I could recommend to you, my brother, it's a
Mhm.
must watch, man. It was an
Okay.
intense, crazy episode, man. And again, I don't really think you're gonna miss much. But dude, if you're gonna try to watch all of that and then catch up with this,
Good
ugh,
luck.
it's gonna be tough.
It
It's gonna
can
be
be
tough.
done. It can be done.
Yeah, man. Al, any
I
questions
believe in
for
you.
us to convince you, brother? Anything that you want to know before we convince you completely to go watch this?
No, kid, I'm already
Oh,
convinced.
he's
It's just
signed.
like you said. It's
He's
how do you
signed up.
find the time to catch
Yeah.
up and then start watching it?
I hear you, man.
Start
that's
watching on your lunch hour at work, man. Like
because how many episodes is there per season in Game of Thrones?
about
To
10.
be honest, about like 10, and then it turns into 6 after like season 7 or 6.
Yeah.
Season 6 starts
And
to
So
they're
turn
about
to
an
like
hour
call it
each,
like
6.
right?
75. Call it like 75 episodes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
And they're about an hour each, right?
Yeah, about an hour.
yeah.
Damn.
Like a
Oh,
legit 60 minutes.
All right.
Battle
I'll
of the
just call out.
Bastards.
I'll
To
just
watch
call out
that
of work
again,
for
you lucky
2 weeks.
mother. You get to watch the Battle of the Bastards for the first time. Ah. Oh, I'm
There's
jealous
so
of
many,
you.
you know what? There's so many moments in the show.
Oh,
You're just like, because they build to it, and you don't know if it's gonna happen, and some
yeah,
of them
man.
don't happen. That's the thing.
And then some of them
But
catch you
then
by
but
surprise.
yeah, and then but then there's some moments that you get, and you're just like, yes, yes, yes.
Oh man.
It's like you out there and you feel like, yeah, I'm House Baratheon, son. Yeah,
Yeah.
son. Yeah, whatever. You out there like you in this. Your heart and soul is in this.
Yeah, man.
Still thinking about it.
I still can't believe the red wedding.
Oh, good.
Just like still, I still can't believe what I saw. I refuse that that's real. No, it's crazy, man. But yeah,
Bro,
man, go
that
for it.
oh my god.
Yeah,
The red wedding. I
that
think
was
back to that.
terrible. That was. I'm still in shock with that one. But guys
Yo.
out there watching us, listening to us, man, listen, House of Dragons is the shit so far, man, and I can only expect it to be better. And listen, we're gonna have Lord of the Rings coming out pretty soon too for Amazon, which is looking spectacular. That's coming out in September, I believe. So guys, be on the lookout for Lord of the Rings, House of
Another season
Dragons.
of His Dark Materials is coming too.
His Dark Materials. What's that?
That was
Sounds
you
interesting.
remember the Golden Compass? So it's
Sounds
it's
familiar.
yeah, so it's a series of books.
Alright.
And then they had done the Golden Compass movie and it didn't do too well. And then what HBO did, they took it on, and instead of doing it as movies, they're doing it as series. So
No,
they already
HBO is
yeah.
well worth it. Look, I saw a preview for The Last of Us. Oh,
Does that look good?
it looks crazy, son. So I mean, if they're gonna copy that story from the games, sold,
yeah.
son. All right, listen. You guys are hearing us talk about it. We're not trying to get too in depth and spoil it because our boy Al, we're not doing that to him. So listen, you guys out there, watch it, catch it, and maybe we'll talk about some other episodes in the couple of podcasts coming up. So again, Game of Thrones, House of Dragons, yeah, that's a good one right there. So let's talk about what everybody else is talking about right now, which is She-Hulk episode 1, which came out last Thursday. We have She-Hulk episode 2 coming out this Wednesday for you lucky West Coast people that can stay up past midnight over there. For us, it's 3 a.m. Lucky bastards. So listen, let's get right into She-Hulk. Again, people listening, it's going to be a spoiler filled this one. Well, let me make sure. Al, Sanjay, you all saw this?
All saw it.
Yeah, so we're gonna go in because again, anything you talk about is gonna be a spoiler because it's a half-hour episode and there's not everything we see and talk about is just absolutely crazy. So listen, everybody's talking about this one subject, so let's get going with She-Hulk. Captain America fucks. Dude.
But the thing is, at the beginning of the episode when they were talking about it, and she was like reasoning it out, I'm like, holy shit, he is a virgin.
Yeah, but there was I don't know if we want to leave this for later, but there was one aspect, there was actually one word in that whole conversation in that after clip that made me question a lot of assumptions that I had been making about Captain America.
Al, we are in the spoiler section. Go for it, brother. What you got going, man?
When she finally wears him down and he thinks that she's drunk and he breaks it down.
Yeah.
He doesn't say Captain America was not a virgin. He says Captain America is not a virgin.
I heard that. Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing people are talking about. So he's definitely around.
So if you want to pay attention to the tense he used, that implies Captain America's still alive. Because he spoke about Tony in the past tense every time he referred to him.
Right, because he knows.
But when he referred to Cap, he referred to him in the present tense.
Yeah, man. No, definitely. I got that, man. And it's funny that you say that, man, because it's like when I was listening to the tense, and dude, when he talked about Tony, man,
Ah,
that got me, man. I was just like, damn, dude, this shit is real.
yeah.
But with the Captain America stuff, it's just hilarious, dude. Like the way they played that off was just funny, man. But
Mhm.
like besides like the jokey joke of Captain America not being a virgin, which is just an absolutely ridiculous topic for a movie and for like a MCU thing, it's just so hilarious.
But it
But
went with the theme.
it wasn't the theme, but it was like brought up a couple times, and then at the end, dude, when she's like Captain America, I was rolling for like a good 10 minutes over here. Like, I can't believe she
Yeah.
just yelled that. Like, this is the MCU. And like they're really getting away with shit. Like the Spider-Man at the end of every movie, what the but listen, She-Hulk itself, man, again, not a character I knew a lot about. I've known of She-Hulk, of course, but
Mhm.
to be honest with you guys, I've never read her comic books. You know, I've only
No.
seen her in a couple of other comic books, like when she was with the Avengers, or when she showed up with Spider-Man, or she showed up with something else. You would see her, or for you got not to recognize her is ridiculous, but to know her character and know the stories that she's been in the comic books, that's not me. I don't know anything about her and a lot of these newer characters. So to see her for the first time and to get an understanding of who she is, man, I gotta tell you, man, I loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it. I loved her character. Tatiana Maslany, I think is her name, and the real actress who's playing her. Incredible,
Yeah.
fantastic. Al, how about you, man? What's your thoughts on She-Hulk, brother?
Yeah. I mean, for sure, for like you said, a character I didn't know too much about. I like the lightheartedness of the series, of the way her character seems to be. She's obviously a talented attorney. Maybe she was lacking confidence, and now this
Mhm.
is bringing confidence into her. But the fact that there is that sense of humor, the joking that was there, the sarcasm, like that I is my favorite form of humor, sarcasm.
Right.
So for that to be there, and it kind of along the lines of Deadpool, like she kept reminding me of Deadpool when she
Hmm.
would do a lot of the stuff that she was doing in the show, even that breaking the fourth wall. I found it had just the show as a whole just had me cracking up throughout, but
Hmm.
at the same time, they didn't joke about the serious issues, like as to when they touch on why she can control the change, whereas Bruce couldn't.
Right.
And it made me look into a little bit more because they make certain some references to trauma, and I'm like, well, what trauma did Hulk go through? I don't understand. And then you find out as to
Yeah.
like what Hulk's background when he was growing up was,
Hmm.
and as to why he had a persona and possibly why she doesn't.
Right.
So like for but they do it, and like that's one of the things I like about the way Marvel does their movies. They know that a lot of the people watching the show know the comics, and they obviously know that there's a breadth of material where you can look into this. So they throw a lot of background through one-liners,
Hmm.
and there's just like comments that they make here and there that even though they may be changed, like for example, I think in the comics she gets a full blood transfusion and that's how she becomes the Hulk.
Right.
Whereas in here it's just a quick blood, quick blood droplet. But when he goes and analyzes everything, the way he explains it, like it sounds like a quick brush over, but it kind of, they make it make sense and they
It
make
makes
it
more
seem,
sense than a blood transfusion.
yeah.
You know.
So I'm looking forward to the show. I'm looking forward to the characters. I hope
Yeah.
the villains are a little bit more serious than the one that they brought at the end of this episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking
Titania.
forward. Yeah, I'm looking forward to all of the, the humor, the jokes, the comedy of this show,
Mhm.
while playing on the seriousness. Like her saying, "I manage my anger every day when when an incompetent man talks to me about the area of my expertise." Like so,
Mhm.
here seeing them touch on stuff like that, but doing it in a comical way, the way they handle this episode, I'm looking forward to the rest of the season.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And Brandon, do you know a lot about the She-Hulk character yourself, or just kind of like us, where we're learning as we go, kind of thing?
I know a bit, about She-Hulk. I think the changes that they've made in this episode for her background and kind of where they lead it were really smart decisions, especially while it gave us more about the Hulk, and
Hmm.
explaining a lot of Endgame to us, the things that we didn't get in Endgame, the things that happened before the blip, after the blip, and how that affected Bruce, and kind of like this PTSD that he's going through is similar to the comic stuff,
Mhm.
and similar to the stuff that she's gone through herself. So I like that this episode not only built her, but built the Hulk, and then they kind of built each other around the mythos of the comics, which was pretty cool.
Right. And how about you, Sans? What's your thoughts on She-Hulk? Like, did you know the character, or you kind of like learning with it?
I knew the character existed. I didn't know much of her story. I didn't even know how she became a Hulk
Right.
in the first place, but I mean, I thought it was a little cheesy how they made her become a Hulk here. But I
Yeah.
mean, it's again, you have to suspend reality. It is what it is. But I did enjoy how comical it was, how lighthearted it was, but also how matter of factly they went into the backstory. It wasn't like contrived. Is like, let me sit you down and explain everything that happens, and in like a 5 minute little montage we've like now glossed over
Mhm.
everything. Like you said, it came out in one liners and natural conversation as this story was progressing along. So
Mhm.
I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that a lot. Mark Ruffalo is the Hulk, getting a little bit more into his character, getting a little bit about where he's been, what he's doing, since Endgame, or even like Thor Ragnarok, or
Right.
since we last saw him. That's always nice as well. Like, it makes that continuity. Like, I don't expect him to be too big of a part of the story. I want to see her story. I don't want it to be overshadowed by the Hulk. I don't want it to be come a Hulk series. I want to see her story.
Right.
um but I just did think they kicked it off really well by letting kind of like having him hand the baton you know, to to her, and she's like, "No, I'm gonna go about this my own way.
Yeah.
You have your way." And he's just like, "Well, I'm always here." So I think that was really cool.
Yeah, man, absolutely, man. And again, Assange, you bring up a good aspect of the show is Hulk wasn't there to take over the show, but he was a part of it as to kind of help guide her a little bit and also provide some great entertainment for us, man. I mean, Hulk was awesome, man. And
Yeah.
she's like, what does he call him? A smug Hulk because he kept referring to himself as Smart Hulk. Yeah, it's pretty funny, man. But again, we got a lot of details in there. What him and Tony did in those 5 years during the blip. Where he was saying, me and Tony came over here, we built the bar, and we did all this stuff like that, and seeing like he had a book of how to be a Hulk, like trying to help her go through it. I thought it
Yeah.
was really interesting and cool. And again, shout out to Mark Ruffalo and Tatiana Maslany as far as like these two. I've never seen them act together, but this is my first experience with them, and even as either CGI characters or themselves talking to each other, dude, completely believable as cousins or family members, because it was just like just watching people just talk. It was awesome, man. I thought it
Hmm.
was amazing. How you feel about the Hulk in the show?
Yeah, no, actually, that was one of the things I liked was that because sometimes in these shows, in order to hype up the new character that they want the focus to be on, they kind of like watered down the other character,
Mhm.
you know. So, and what I liked was that they made her look like a Hulk. They showed that she's strong and
Mhm.
all these abilities now, but they didn't make her seem better than the Hulk. And even though they had that back and forth where she's like, oh, you mean better? And he's like, different. And and then you have that scene with the rock where he tosses the rock, so she throws the rock and it goes farther. So like to show that like, no, I'm still good, I'm still the shit too. He just chugs that shit and it goes like supersonic into space, like
It disintegrated
yeah,
in the atmosphere.
yeah. So I like
He's
the fact
like,
that
"Don't get this twisted.
yeah,
I'm the
yeah.
Hulk."
I just wanted to show you what how it's done.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, "You're a Hulk. I'm the
Yeah.
Hulk."
Yeah. So I like, so that was my thing that, they didn't water him down just to make her be, the main person of the show. It was her
Yeah.
show. He never took any scene away. Having him there was what they needed him to do, was to introduce her to what it is to be a Hulk, what she's got to, take into consideration, think
Mhm.
about and worry about. And then from there, now the show is going to be hers. and I like
Yeah.
the way and I think they introduced a lot of potential for him,
Yeah.
either in a solo show or solo movie. I don't know how they're
Yeah.
gonna handle it, but that ship coming that caused the accident in the first place, and then him saying, "Oh, I gotta find out what that's about." Like, is that the lead-in for his own movie?
Right.
I
Yeah.
You know?
thought I like Sanjay, I kind of thought that was a little on the hokey side. Like like, of all the things to happen, the ship just comes down, it causes this accident, you know, that's the thing that causes the accident, and then he's like, "Oh, yeah, Sicarian ship, yeah, I gotta figure that out." I'd be like, "What the fuck is Sicarian ship doing here?" You know?
Yeah.
So it was, like, so glossed over, and this is to
uh,
kinda proceed, and I'm like, "Wait, no, go back."
Absolutely, man. And Science, one of the big deals that everybody was making, before the show came out was the VFX or the digital graphics there for Hulk, She-Hulk, especially. How you feel that they fared with the amount of time that they had to do this? Because I feel like there's rumors or there's people talking about that this first episode was really supposed to be the eighth episode, or the reveal of how she became She-Hulk was supposed to be the eighth episode, and they actually moved it to the first, and that's why some of the VFX is kind of like spotty or like not really great. I think they did a great job with hiding the bad VFX, but how was your feelings about that?
Well, the Hulk I could definitely tell was visual effects, but she looked real. Like she looked like she could just be a real person, like playing, in green makeup,
Yeah,
playing the character. But he definitely, but I mean, I guess because I know that the Hulk is, and he's exaggerated.
yeah,
He's like way bigger and like swole up and whatever. So it's like you're not used to seeing a normal person like that. Like you've
right,
seen bodybuilding women that have that same physique,
yeah,
as She-Hulk. So she's not over exaggerated. So she looks, real,
yeah.
you know. So I thought they did a decent job there as well.
How about you, B? What'd you think of the graphics of everything? I think Hulk looked fantastic, but I mean, like it's not says, of course we know it's not real, but it looked like Hulk from the movies to me.
Yeah, I honestly I thought they did a really good job. Um, I'm getting a little worried, you know, as most of this starts coming out regarding the VFX and
Hmm.
the VFX for all the Marvel movies, because the Hulk looked great, the Sicarian ship looked great, She-Hulk looked great, but I'm worried that with this series being almost, I think, 9 episodes, that
Yeah,
it's gonna start to deteriorate and kind of get spotty over the course of this series,
yeah,
because now we're getting, you know, reports about how under pressure these VFX artists have been throughout this last phase of Marvel movies due to the demand of the shows and movies, that
hmm,
they are now putting out the best they can do with the time they have, and that doesn't really sound very Marvel to me, you know?
right,
So
yeah.
I'm a little worried about where we go from here.
Gotcha, man. And Al, the one spotty bit of VFX for me was the goddamn jump kick from the bad guy. That jump kick, she kind of floated in the air a little too long for me.
Yeah.
It reminded me
No,
of one of those like funny kung fu movies that it's not real.
yeah. Now, for me, the spottiness was when the montage where she's like, on the hill with the Hulk, and you see her doing like the yoga and all that stuff.
Yeah.
There, she seemed odd. She didn't seem as proportionate
Hmm.
and real like she did in the rest of the scenes.
Right.
Like when she jumps and she's like, man, man, and everything. Like from the neck down, she looked off. She didn't look as proportionate.
Right.
And like you said, it looked a little rushed there. But the rest of the show, kid, shit, like when you see her talking, like Sanj said, like there were scenes where I thought that like maybe they just like did a little bit of plastic on the face to bulk it up a little bit, and then just put paint because
Yeah.
some of those scenes look that good.
Yeah.
So if the rest of the show is going to get better,
Hmm.
then that's going to be a big plus.
Gotcha, man. And it looks like what we're dealing with in this show is going to be like she kept saying this is a lawyer show. That's what she said, right? She's like lawyer show. So I'm excited to see what type of court cases she's going to deal with, and what experiences she has. This first episode was basically just introducing us to She-Hulk, how she became She-Hulk, and now we're going to go from there. Sanj, any expectations for the show as far as what you think you might be seeing and stuff? Because there's rumors of a bunch of cameos and bad guys and good guys. You know, we got Wong definitely in an episode, Abomination. Any thoughts on any or hopes on what you're seeing?
I don't know much of her story, so I really don't
Yeah,
have any expectations. I'm just gonna enjoy the ride.
absolutely, man. How about you, B? If you're still there, you go. Yeah, we hear you. Hmm. Hmm. All right. And how about you, Al? Any expectations for the future shows?
For the future episodes, like just the cameos, and I'm definitely looking forward to the Daredevil cameo.
Mm.
Hell
Yeah,
yes.
so when that comes in, definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, man. Same here, man. You know, I know Daredevils is going to be in one of these episodes, so I'm definitely looking forward to that. And just hoping that, again, the show keeps living up to this expectation that we have that's going to be a good MCU show, a good
Yeah.
story. I mean, so far, so good. Haven't had a single complaint about what they've done so far as She Hulk goes. But hey, we got our fingers crossed for a good 9 episode series of She Hulk. So,
Hmm.
again, guys, She Hulk every Thursday for us on the East Coast after midnight, well, after 3 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday. So that's Thursday for us guys. And then 12 a.m. for the people out there in the West Coast. So lucky for you guys.
Yeah.
But again, we're gonna talk about She-Hulk, we'll talk about House of Dragons, and again, of course, we're gonna talk about movies when the good big movies come out. I'm gonna check to see what movies come out this week. If not, then maybe we'll catch Beast if we all get a chance to. But listen, man, that's gonna be us for this week. We definitely wanted to put something out there and talk to you guys
Yeah.
about what we saw. Again, we talk about the popular stuff, the entertainment stuff, because this is stuff that we watch also. If we're into these movies, we're going to be into these TV shows just like that as well.
Yeah.
So hopefully you guys don't mind that we didn't talk about a movie this week, but damn, it felt like it. It felt like movies, man. Oh man, so listen, I'm not sure if B's gonna come back on, but listen, saying goodnight from us here in the Real Fan Review. We got our man Sanj.
Good evening, everybody, and stay safe out there.
We got our man in the chair Al.
Have a good night, everybody.
And we got myself, Hobbs, saying goodnight. Brandon saying, hey, fellas, not sure what happened. So he's not coming back on to say goodnight, but I will. I'll say goodnight for him. So, guys, again, listen, hit the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. Hit that plus symbol on your podcast play app and listen to us every single week where we put out an episode regarding movies, movie news, movie rumors, and some TV shows now. So we'll see you guys on the next podcast. Until next time.